Good afternoon, everybody. This
Good
is the
afternoon.
third episode for the reporting live from abroad. And this episode will be recorded for future learning and sharing. Today's topic is the role of philosophy in shaping post-communist Polish education. Our distinguished speaker is Dr. Anna Rogowska. Anna is a philosopher, a translator of philosophy texts, an editor, formerly a philosophy teacher at the Warsaw University of Technology and the Institute of Applied Social Sciences of the University of Warsaw. Main areas of interest: philosophical inquiry and the education program Philosophy for Children, animal studies, and poetry. Anna came to Creighton University a few years ago and did a great presentation on philosophy of children. And we also met Anna in Warsaw when we teaching the Ukraine kids in the Warsaw School of Ukraine 2 years ago. Today, we are very, very happy to have Anna to join us for this webinar series that was hosted and is going to be hosted by the Nebraska Waterfield Council. And I thank everybody to listen to this great lecture. And if Anna has some time, that she can allow us to have some questions. Anna, thank you very much again for coming to us to the United States in Warsaw, Poland. And we look forward to listening to you.
This is
The floor
about
is yours.
Poland.
Thank you.
Poland.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. And I'm starting. November 11, today, November 11. This is the day that the First World War ended. In Poland, it's a holiday, the Independence Day. It is intended to commemorate the beginning of the Second Polish Republic. So, a brief insight into the history for better understanding of the present. Two quite metaphorical concepts as keywords: moving borders and broken continuities. Poland is located in Central Eastern Europe, between East and West, always under political and cultural influences from both civilization directions. Now is the first long period in which the country's borders have been clearly defined and stable. More than 3/4 of a century since 1945. The year 966 is considered to be the beginning of the state. From the 14th century, for almost 400 years, there existed a large Polish-Lithuanian state, a union of the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, called also the First Polish Republic. This state was a republic in the sense that it had a political system combining the features of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Why democracy? In the 16th century, an early form of modern democracy was formed in Poland, so-called democracy of nobility, of gentry. It did not include the lower social classes and women, of course. But still, that political system was an exception in Europe at that time. At the time of its greatest territorial scope, This state included, among others, the areas of today's Lithuania and Belarus, part of today's Ukraine, including the Kiev region, and also a small part of today's Russia. It was a multinational, multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious state, with quite advanced religious tolerance and unstable, frequently changing borders. At the end of the 18th century, the First Polish Republic was torn apart by three neighboring powers: Russia, Prussia, and the Habsburg monarchy, in short, Austria, later Austro-Hungary. Various English terms can be applied in this context: partition, annexation, occupation. The first two partitions brought a dramatic reduction in territory. The third one removed Poland from the political map of Europe. I will mention two attempts to save that republic. The first attempt, created immediately after the first partition, the Commission of National Education. It can be considered the first Ministry of Education in Europe. An attempt to save the state, the body politic, through the reform of education. The second attempt, the adoption of the Constitution of May 3rd, 1799. It was the first written constitution in Europe, the second in the world after the American Constitution. And it was strongly inspired by the American Constitution. May 3 was even celebrated by the authorities in the late phase of communism in the 1980s, even if sometimes that was also the day of protests. Attempts to implement the constitution ended with Russia's armed intervention and the second partition. Poland did not exist on the political map of Europe for 123 years, until 1918. The broken political continuity meant the broken continuity of the development of science, philosophy, and art, education, and economy. The Polish language has survived, and moving borders can bring interesting legacy. Our national epic poem by Adam Mickiewicz, 19th century, begins with the words, "Lithuania, my homeland." It was the reading material of Polish students before World War II and during communism, and it is now. Language seems to be a mainstay of continuity. By the way, communism in Poland, at least after the Stalinist period, was less oppressive than in some other countries, not to mention the Soviet Union. The period between two world wars was the time of the Second Polish Republic. Efforts toward legal, administrative, economic, and cultural integration of three partitions, including the three different education systems. Still a multinational, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multilingual state. Borders change once again. Also when Poland included parts of Lithuania, Belarus, and Ukraine. National minorities constituted over 40% of the population. In 1918, active and passive voting rights were granted to women. I mentioned it because in many European countries, this happened later and gradually. As for philosophy, at the very end of the 19th century, the Lviv Warsaw Philosophical School of Logic began to form. Probably the only one Polish philosophical and interdisciplinary movement known also outside Poland. Its members dealt mainly with logic, especially mathematical logic, mathematics and the philosophy of mathematics, philosophy of language and psychology. The school has produced some of the leading logicians of the 20th century. One of them, maybe most famous, Alfred Tarski, since 1939 worked in the USA. The school began to form in Lviv, now Ukraine. In Austro-Hungarian multinational empire, the authorities provided more freedom in the field of national languages and cultures. After regaining independence by Poland, some prominent members of the school moved to Warsaw. The oldest Polish university, the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, also operated in the Austrian partition. From 1897, women could study there at the philosophy faculty. Interestingly, the philosophy department was the earliest and strongest supporter for women's university studies and were obtaining scientific degrees. World War II brought another break, the Second World War, brought another break in political and cultural continuity, even if the Polish government in exile was a subject of international law until July 1945. A lost statehood, almost 6 years of occupation, and complete destruction of a large part of the capital. After the war, Poland became one of the satellite states of the Soviet Union. Shift of the borders westwards. Extermination of the vast majority of Polish Jews, forced resettlement of the population from the eastern parts of the country when they became parts of the Soviet Union. Poland is no longer a clearly multinational and multi-ethnic country. National minorities constitute approximately 3.5% of the population. After the overthrow of communism or socialism, that was the formal name, this break in continuity was marked in the new constitution. In its preamble, Poland was called the Third Polish Republic, not the fourth. Dissociation from the previous political system was emphasized. Education system in my country is quite ordinary. 8th grade proceeded by a 1 year zero grade, then 4 or 5 years of high school, then studies at a university, an academy, or at some other school. Public education financed by the state dominates. In the past academic year, women constituted about 58% of the students after 12th grade. Studying in a 8th grade school is compulsory. Until the age of 18, further training at school or completing vocational training with an employer is required. External examinations, the same for public and private schools, after the 8th and after the 12th grade. Currently, approximately 220,000 refugee children from Ukraine attend Polish schools or kindergartens. From September this year, parents or guardians are obliged to send them to the school, to the Polish school. And they are about to be provided with additional lessons on Polish language. Polish language lessons. Previously, a certain number of Ukrainian students studied in schools in Ukraine via the internet. Now only final grade students can choose it so that they can take the final exams in Ukraine. From January 2025, parents or guardians who do not send their children to schools in Poland will no longer receive financial benefits for children, the same as Polish parents receive. But much earlier, another decision was made, important for education and related to the teaching of philosophy. The first non-communist government, without consulting the parliament, restored religious education in public schools. It was a strictly political decision related to then very large influence of the Catholic Church, with its participation in building the political opposition during communism and in overthrowing this system. The only provision in the Polish constitution is that religion may be taught in schools. Ethic classes are organized for students who do not attend religion classes. But there are no regulations stating that ethics is compulsory for students who do not attend religious studies. A student can also take both subjects in theory. In practice, this is difficult. The school is obliged to organize religious education if parents or adult students wish it. In my opinion, a political decision regarding religion and ethics in schools just hindered the introduction of philosophy lessons for a long time. Philosophy was reduced to optional ethics lessons, in which a minority of students participated. It was only in 2017 that the philosophy core curriculum was developed and approved by the Ministry of Education for the second stage of education, that means after 8th grade school. Currently, it is the high school principal who decides whether philosophy is a compulsory subject. Around the year 2015, philosophy was taught in any grade from 7 to 12 only in 1% and 1%, 4 schools. And these were usually optional classes. It is probably a larger number of schools now. In some European countries, philosophy is taught compulsory at high school level or even before. For example, in France, Greece, Portugal, Spain, Finland, starting from the next school year, there will be only one religion lesson a week, not two. In practice, that means 1 hour of ethics. It may be disappointing, but I don't think that philosophical education played a big role in shaping education in post-communist Poland and in shaping civil society, simply because of its too narrow educational range. But philosophical education is not the only factor. A civic society was built and passed the test when the refugees from Ukraine began to arrive in Poland. You can imagine the situation. More than one people arrived only during the first week of the war. A social movement to help not only people but also animals was a grassroots movement. The problem is that such socio-political phenomenon provides no guarantee for the future, not just in Poland, but whenever, anywhere. Why? In her book on thinking, Hannah Arendt, a philosopher, maybe you know her, in a chapter on Socrates, wrote about the astonishing ease with which values and norms can be reversed in certain circumstances. Just as the basic commandment of Western morality, you shall not kill, turned into its opposite in fascist Germany. Of course, this case mentioned by Arendt, the case of the fascism at that time, is an extreme case, but we can broaden the interpretation, apply it to milder cases, to any situation where people thoughtlessly, uncritically accept ideas, views, postulates, rules, and so on. And they refrain themselves from further thinking. Arendt argues that the ability to think for oneself can, at least sometimes, prevent such collective moral and political disasters as German fascism. So, if I were to put it as briefly as possible, if philosophy is needed in schools, it is not only primarily because it can develop critical, creative, independent thinking for oneself. In educator circles, at least in the European Union, the postulate that students should develop such thinking seems to be widely accepted, especially in connection with the ability to critically analyze information found on the internet, including social media. The question is how we can develop such thinking effectively. Well, there is, and I think should be, pluralism in education, but I personally appreciate very much the answer offered by the educational approach called philosophy for children, philosophy with children, philosophizing with children, initiated by the American philosopher Matthew Lipman. Philosophizing in dialogue with others, a dialogic discussion based on students asking their own questions. In short, the methodology of a community of inquiry, which can develop a wide range of thinking skills and help students to make better judgments in their life practice. Lipman believed that this methodology could, to some extent, be used also in teaching regular school subjects, not only philosophy, but they cannot replace philosophy lessons. To avoid misunderstandings, he proposes philosophizing in school so that the student is ready to ask questions anew and re-reflect, to continue his or her thinking, not so that the student can develop a fixed set of beliefs once and for all. This educational approach is implemented in schools in many countries, not only the West, so-called the West countries. In Poland, well, no one has counted how many schools provide lessons according to this methodology. I can only say that not in many schools. Both mentioned philosophers, Hannah Arendt and Matthew Lipman, took into account two aspects of the ability to think for oneself, communal and individual. That means, how can we contribute to building a better world, possibly for all of us? And how can we live our own individual, unique life as best as possible? Well, thank you. These are my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much. So interesting. And we intend to just keep the 25-minute. So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. But as I said, the YouTube will be available for more people to enjoy your talk. And I thank everyone to sign up.
Thank you.
And let's see. And I really enjoyed it. And then thank you so much, Anna. And thank everybody come to the event. Okay, have a
Thank you
good
for
day.
listening.
Bye
Thank you
bye,
very much.
Julie. Bye bye, Vicky.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye, Betty.
Bye.
Bye,
Hi, Anna.
Anna.
Bye.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Moran, can you hear me?